What is shakin', Internet? Welcome to the Weekly Coin, a weekly podcast discussion forum for the game Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft. I'm your host, Saltz, and this week's topic is the power of going second. Welcome to the Weekly Coin, a show discussing topics from Hearthstone, the new CCG from Blizzard. Every week we'll pick a topic to discuss, and the biggest topic on many Hearthstone players' minds right now is it always better to go first or second? So, the core idea is that in many CCGs, there's a trade-off for going second versus going first. In many games, this is as simple as if you go first, you don't draw a card on your first turn. And if you go second, you do get to draw a card on your first turn. That's how it works in games like Magic the Gathering and the Warcraft TCG. In Yu-Gi-Oh!, the player going first can't attack, but gets the card draw. In the Pokemon TCG, you can't evolve your Pokemon on turn 1. As you can see, there's a wide variety of how this trade-off works depending on the mechanics of the game. In Hearthstone, though, a strong belief amongst many players is that going second is much stronger than going first. Yes, I've seen the posts from Blizzard that show the win rates are pretty close overall, but since so many people are talking about it, I'd like to analyze it further. Starting at the beginning, the first player gets to mulligan 3 cards, allowing them to get rid of 3 potentially bad early game cards. The second player gets to mulligan 4 cards. This mulligan is extremely strong for a few reasons. The first is that the more cards you decide if you want or not, the more control you'll have over getting momentum early game. Additionally, if you mulligan a card, you cannot get that same card again. In physical card games like Magic or Pokemon or Warcraft TCG, if I mulligan, there's a chance that I could get the exact same cards again. This can't happen in Hearthstone. Just to note, I'm talking about the exact same card. If I have 2 fireballs in my deck, and I mulligan one of them, I can't get the first fireball I tossed back. But I can get the second one, effectively getting the same card, but the first fireball will go back into the deck afterwards. This is actually a very important idea. If I have 3 cards that are terrible early, and I toss them all, I now only have 27 cards to choose 3 new cards from. Obviously, if I go second and have 4 cards that are bad early game, I can pick 4 new ones from 26 remaining cards. This means that going first gives me a potential 6 cards from my deck based on mulligan, while going second gives me 8 potential cards from my deck. What this does is allow the player going second a significant advantage in setting up the early game plays, because after the mulligan you have no control over what cards come into your hand from your deck. 2 cards might not sound like a huge advantage of potential cards, but keep in mind that 2 cards is about 7% of your entire deck. Now let's look a little further. The coin is the card you'll get for going second. For 0 mana, you get a bonus mana crystal for 1 turn. At first glance, this really just means that you can jump up 1 turn and pretend that you went first for that turn. That's essentially what the coin does, but it has a much stronger psychological effect, especially in higher levels of play. The hardcore Hearthstone players know what kind of cards to watch out for. Mind Control against Priest, Unleash the Hounds against a Hunter, Bloodlust against a Shaman, etc. If your opponent goes first, then you know exactly how much mana they'll have when you end your turn, and can play around it. You know that on turn 7, that mage can pull out Flame Strike and wipe the board, so you can plan for it. But if they go second, you have to play extra careful. There's nothing worse than going first, getting to turn 7, playing something like an Ancient of War, thinking you'll have at least 1 turn of that 10 damage, only to watch the priest coin into a Mind Control. The coin becomes a must-track item, which you have to be 100% sure of when it's been used and when it hasn't, and results in a lot more defensive posturing in many cases. That's not to say the coin is necessarily broken. In fact, I believe it leads to some extremely tactical thinking and is likely one of the most interesting game mechanics in Hearthstone currently. The coin adds another layer of strategy and complexity to the game that truly complements skill and gives people who know more about the game an edge over when to play it and when to watch out for it, which I think is fantastic. The problem isn't that the coin itself is broken. It's mostly how it interacts with specific cards. You guessed it. I'm talking about things like Combo for rogues, the Twilight Drake, the Mountain Giant, etc. The fact that the coin counts as a bonus card in your hand seems counterintuitive. The fact that it counts as a spell when cast seems totally broken. When a questing adventurer gets a bonus from a coin, or a mana addict gets buffed by it, it makes people question if it was really intended to be that way in the first place. On the flip side, the improper use of the coin can be just as bad. More than once, I've seen people coin on turn 1 just to use their hero power, and then have nothing to play on turn 2. This is just an awful use of the coin, and makes my brain hurt. The coin literally just gives you a 1-turn advantage, and it should be used to maximize that advantage. For newer players, the coin acts as a mitigation tool, the mindset being, if I can't do anything on a given turn, I should coin into something so that I can use it. This isn't really always a bad choice, but you have to look forward beyond the current turn. If I use the coin now on turn 2 to pull out a 3-cost minion, will I have something to do on turn 3, or will I be sitting around doing nothing? I will say that late game the coin can, keyword can, become very useless. If you wait too long, you can easily miss the opportunity to take advantage of it. But holding onto the coin until late game can let you drop a 5-cost minion and then a 6-cost minion in the same turn. So it really can't be overlooked, because even late game, the coin can be absolutely game-changing. And that's enough about the coin for now. The point of this discussion is over the power of going second. I've given all these reasons for going second and why it's so strong. So why would anyone ever want to go first? Well, there are some advantages to going first. For one, you'll always have 1 more mana consistently than your opponent. This generally means you'll be pulling out bigger minions 1 turn earlier than your opponent, so you'll be able to attack and or react to anything they play faster and with more mana than they can react to you. For example, if I pull a Chillwind Yeti out on turn 4, and my opponent does the same on his turn 4, I have a Yeti ready to attack, and 5 mana to spend on turn 5, which can very often mean some form of removal, and an attack to boot. This is a big advantage, because basically you'll always have 1 more mana to respond to something than your opponent had to you. If your opponent doesn't play the coin smartly, they lose that huge potential, and really, the only advantage they have beyond that is a single card at the beginning of the game. You have to think of it as half a card, though, because on turn 1 you'll draw a 4th card, putting you at 4 cards, and the opponent at 4 cards plus a coin. So really, when your opponent has a 1-card advantage on their turn, it's more of a half-card advantage, since you'll be drawing 1 on yours. So to review all that, the second player gets a half-card advantage to start with, then they'll get a Mulligan advantage, which allows for a better chance at early game control, then they'll get the coin, which is a skill-based advantage. Due to the randomness of card games, I'm totally okay with the Mulligan advantage, because this really just gives a better chance of drawing some good early cards. And, as explained, I find the coin to be a really cool skill advantage that brings a lot to the game. And the half-card advantage is a very accepted tradition in many TCGs, so there's really no problem there. So what really is the problem? The problem is that they're all advantages. Any 1 or 2 of these advantages would be fine, I think. Getting an extra card and the coin, but only Mulligan 3 cards? That'd be fine. Mulligan 4 and get a coin, but don't draw on turn 1? That might work. Extra cards and Mulligan, but no, and Mulligan 4, but no coin? Even that could be possible, though I'd really be sad to see the coin go. It's just that there's so much working in the second player's favor that it does seem a little imbalanced. I've read around, and there's lots of simple solutions that people have offered that could be steps in the right direction. A 3-card Mulligan seems to be a popular solution, with 2 cards drawn on turn 1 to keep that card advantage going. And half-card advantage, I guess. Another is the removal of the coin as a card, treating it like a once-per-game hero power instead. I definitely like that idea, as it keeps the strategic purpose of the coin, but removes its gimmicky interactions with certain cards. One person even mentioned giving the person who wins the coin toss the choice of playing first or second. This is also a pretty cool idea, especially seeing as how some classes favor going second. The point is that going second seems just a little too strong right now to many people for several reasons. At the end of the day, the last statistics I saw showed that the win rate is pretty close to 50% for first versus second, although it varied by class. For this week's question to viewers, I'd like to know which class do you believe benefits the most from going second, and which class benefits the most from going first, and why you think that. Please leave your comments in the comment section below, and I'll pick a few to read for the next episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Coin. If you'd like to send in a suggestion for future topics, or have questions you'd like me to answer on the show, please send an email to the.weekly.coin@gmail.com. Please like, favorite, subscribe, all that jazz these videos if you like the series, and, as always, you keep it salty, Internet.